think James Caan in The Godfather actually copied my name, and it was a joke. It wasn't really serious.
So you had balls of steel.
I didn't finish my qualifications. I didn't do GCSEs. I didn't go to university because if I'd stayed at home, my fear was I would end up there. So I left home with...
James Caan is a British-Pakistani entrepreneur and television personality, former star of Dragon's Den and host of The Business Class. Now, using AI to help the next generation of entrepreneurs.
I think in the next 3 to 5 years, I truly believe you will not recognize the business world. AI will transform the way we do business. And I have my own private dedicated channel called Ask James. One of the things that Harvard taught me, did you change it because it's better for business? The truth is, I don't know, because...
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Bricks to Riches podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, James Caan, who's probably known to most of you already. James is a former dragon from Dragon's Den. James, welcome to the podcast.
Nabil, delighted to be here. I was in the area, so I thought I'd drop in.
I preferred if I did the podcast in south of France, where you are.
You're more than welcome to come over there.
Maybe the next one we'll do it on the boat. Now, James, one question I want to ask you, where lots of my viewers asked, where did you get the name James Caan from? One of my students asked me, was it from Godfather? Where did you get that name?
I think James.
And why that name?
I think James Caan in The Godfather actually copied my name. He took my name, so I was very upset. No, joking aside, I was 16. I went to see The Godfather, and when I saw the trailer come up and I saw the way he spelled his name, C-A-A-N, I thought, why do we spell it K? Because my original name was Nazim Khan, K-H-A-N. And I thought Khan should be spelled C-A-A-N, not K-H-A-N. So I was only 16. I was with a bunch of friends. I said, I'm going to change my spelling to C-A-A-N. And jokingly, they said, why don't you change it to James Caan and be the whole thing? And it was a joke. It wasn't really serious. So the next morning, I was at the train station. Back in those days, you used to put 10p in a machine and it would print you your cards. So I had these cards printed with James Caan on it as a joke. Fast forward 40 years, it stuck with me. And now it's too late to change. The question you're going to ask is, did you change it because it's better for business? The truth is, I don't know, because I've only ever done business as James Caan. I've never done business other than James Caan.
But... I bet you never thought 40 years ago when you changed the name, it would be a global name in your sector.
That's right.
Now it's a household name.
Clearly.
So James, the question I want to ask you, your family was in the leather business, and at the age of 16, you left that business and started your own business, a wonderful recruitment business. You were very brave. You had no experience really in business, so you had balls of steel. What made you choose recruitment and what made you go on your own? Because Asian families especially, they like the children to stay in the family business. So you broke the cycle, the norm, and if you didn't break that norm, you wouldn't have got to where you are today in life. So what was the driving force for you to leave the family business and set up on your own? And why recruitment?
So I think like every Asian family, I grew up in an environment where it was an absolute given that I would join my father in the factory making leather garments. And I watched my father work 7 days a week from morning till night, every single day. And I looked at that and I said, that's not for me. I don't want to work in a factory. I don't want to work 7 days a week. And my father didn't enjoy life. And that was what I saw, that if I entered the business, I would be effectively following in his footsteps. That just wasn't a journey. And when I mentioned it to my dad and said, by the way, just to be clear, this is not a journey I want to go in, we had a massive row. And he explained that in our culture, the way we are as a family, this was my destiny. And I decided if I stay, that's what's going to happen. So I left home at 16. I didn't finish my qualifications. I didn't do GCSEs. I didn't go to university because if I'd stayed at home, my fear was I would end up there. So I left home with, I think it was £27. And at the time, used to have these, like a family allowance where the kids used to get like £2 a week. And I had this post office savings book with 27 quid. And that's what I left home with. And, my biggest regret is I didn't finish school. I wish now I'd finished my education. And of course, I broke my father's heart because, he lost a son out of the business that he clearly believed, would have done well for him.
But school, you learn academics. But I've engaged with you many times, James. And one thing I've learned from you, you're self-taught. You have extensive knowledge on many subjects. As a matter of fact, you've written many books. People look up to you. So even if you leave school, you can still learn yourself about commerce, about life, about psychology. You know a lot about every sector. So you learnt yourself.
Yes, you're right.
What inspired you to teach yourself?
I think when I look at your life generally,
Yes.
I do think education is important. I have children and I've encouraged them to go to university. I've encouraged them to do follow-up education. I myself, at the age of 42, went back to school and I went to Harvard Business School and took a degree there because I always felt something was missing in my life. So I have completed the education, albeit 25 years later. So you can imagine at 42, me telling my daughter, I'm going back to school. And she's like, why in God's name do you need to go back to school? What are you going to learn? But I just felt it was something I needed to do.
What did you gain from that besides more business knowledge? By going to Harvard, what did you gain? You learned academia, but how did you apply that in your business today?
I think one of the things that Harvard taught me was more about global economics. So whilst I'm a good understanding of UK and the environment, but at Harvard we spent a lot of time studying politics of China, economics of India, economics of Brazil, how the country runs, how the economy runs, what the GDP is, what different strengths of different countries are. If you were doing business in those countries, what are the kind of compliance, governance, rules, legislation? When you do business in other countries, there are a whole set of different rules and laws, which I hadn't appreciated. I also learned more there about corporate business, because being a family business is one thing, but running a large institutional business is a different skill set.
Yes.
So I think I gained quite a lot from what I learned there.
So you understand more about the macro economy of the world rather than micro.
Yeah.
Okay, and also, James, the other question I want to ask you is, what advice would you give to up-and-coming entrepreneurs, the new generation? Let's say you've got Mr. Smith, Mr. Jones, Mr. Patel, who's 16 or 18. They're in your same situation. They'll be very scared to leave home right now. They'll think, I don't have any money, I don't have an infrastructure, I don't have the resources, and they might be very capable and competent. So what advice would you give them? How to set up a infrastructure on their own? Today's modern world is a lot harder to do what you did.
I mean, so if I take myself back when I was 16, I fell into recruitment. I used to work in a shop as a sales assistant. I was earning £32 a week, and I saw an advert in the newspaper in the Evening Standard, and I can remember it today. The heading was trainee interviewer, and I thought it was a job in TV. So I thought, the word trainee, I'll go and apply. So I took the bus and I went for the interview, and when I arrived, it was an employment agency, a recruitment company, and they wanted somebody to interview candidates for a job. And I was like, that's not what I thought this was going to be, but I thought I'd spent my £1 getting there. I may as well do the interview now I'm here. You never know, he might offer me the job. So I did the interview, and to my shock and surprise, he offered me the job as a recruitment consultant. So I said, how much is the salary? And it was £35 a week, so it was £3 more than I was earning. But what was my hook was, in the shop, I was working 6 days a week. This was only 5.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd make an extra £2 and I get a day off.
Yeah.
So I took the job, and just as life and destiny has it, I actually loved the job. I thought, oh my God, I really like this. I worked there for 2 years, understood the business, and then decided that I wanted to set up on my own, and I wanted to set up my own recruitment company. And so I went and rented an office in Pall Mall, because I thought the location is, your office address is really important, because you want to show people that you're established.
First impressions.
So I literally walked down Pall Mall, knocked on every door to say, do they have a room I can rent? So I rented a room at 50 Pall Mall. It was £100 a week in those days. And it was on the top floor. It was their broom cupboard. It had no windows. You opened the door and you hit the desk, and there was a desk, a chair, a phone, and the Yellow Pages. And that's how I started. And literally, it was every day on the phone, calling companies, picking up vacancies. And if you look at that same company today, Alexander Mann has become the world's largest talent solutions company in the world.
Wow.
It's number one in the world. Last year, its revenues were 1.6 billion.
Wow.
Employs 8,000 people in 22 countries around the world. When I look back and think, when you look at that company, when it started, I was fearless. I had no fear because I had nothing to lose, because I had nothing. Today I may not take the risk, but at that time, I was somebody that was driven, that was passionate, that really believed that I wanted to create something. So I think if I was advising somebody today who was 16 or 18, as long as you really believe in it, it's something you think you can achieve success in. How do you know until you try? If you'd asked me when I started that company, if you'd met me and said, James, what is your ambition in life? I would have said to you at that time, my ambition in life is if I became successful, I want an office with a window, because I found sitting in that box room lonely. If you asked me 3 months later, what's your ambition? I would have said, if I make it, I want to hire somebody, because working on my own is quite lonely.
Yeah.
So my career has been very much what I call baby steps, one step at a time.
James, you had the resources, you had money from your savings, you had your family.
What, £27?
Yeah, but you had a little bit of money. So what about somebody who's got nothing? How will they start their own business? Today, that's my question.
I think today we're in a very different world. When I started, there was no venture capital, there was no angel investment, there was no capital available. Today, there are umpteen avenues available to raise capital. I had nothing. When I launched Alexander Mann, I started it with £30,000, and I raised that £30,000 from 3 credit cards. Each of the cards had a 10,000 credit limit, and I drew the entire amount from 3 different credit cards, and that's how I funded the business. Those days, you had to be much more creative. Today, there are many different ways of raising capital, but more importantly, people think to start a business, you need money. The truth of the matter is, there are a lot of service businesses that you can start from home because you just need a desk and a phone. There's a lot of people who are brokers, agents, whatever. You don't need a huge amount of capital. So this...
But if you want to grow, James, like I want to grow my business or you do, you always need a lot of capital. Money makes money.
But I think businesses have stages.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about the young entrepreneur that's about to start, he doesn't always need capital. Once the business is up and running, there are many different ways of raising private equity capital. I today use bank funding, I use mezzanine finance, I use debt finance. There's a whole array. As long as you have a viable business, you can raise capital.
I agree.
Capital is easy if your idea is solid. Capital is very difficult if your idea is unproven.
And debt finance, that's one of my students asked me to ask you the question. A lot of people prefer debt finance rather than equity because it's cheaper. What's your view on that? Because if nobody's got a proven track record, a lot of lenders won't touch you. So then you have no choice but to go to an equity funder.
I mean, there's a clear differential between debt and equity. Equity is a higher risk. So if you have a business or a proposition that is high risk, the bank is not there because banks lend on what we call secured lending, where they want complete security. If your idea has no security, you will not get bank debt at all. Therefore, you need an angel investor or private equity.
Somebody who believes in your vision. Okay, and also, James, I can see from your bio that you were the founder and chairman of the government startup loans, and you given out over £1 billion. How was that? How many entrepreneurs did you help? How did that come about? Because that's a great position to be involved with the government to help new businesses.
So when I came off Dragon's Den, I was approached by, at the time, David Cameron, who was the Prime Minister. And it was quite a weird experience. I was in my office, reception called and said, we have the Prime Minister on the phone. And I obviously thought it was a prank. I thought someone's clearly winding me up. So I answered the phone. I said, "Hello, Dave." And he said, "It is the Prime Minister." And I stood up because I recognized the voice. And I said, "How can I help?" And he said, "James, we have a proposition. We are looking to foster entrepreneurship in England. And we are looking to back entrepreneurs because we think one of the ingredients of being an entrepreneur is you create jobs."
Yes.
And our current view as government is in the next 20 years, our forecast is we are not creating enough jobs for people coming out of university. And therefore, we're looking for somebody that we can work with that can help encourage people to start their own business. So he invited me to Downing Street, which I'd never been before. So I thought, very nice. I went along for my meeting and I walked in and there was a big room and there was David Cameron, there was Lord Young, and there was George Osborne and one other chap there. Anyway, and they said to me, "Look, we're looking for somebody to create this new organisation called Startup Loans, and we're going to put £1 billion of capital, and we want somebody to find the entrepreneurs to back." So I said, "How long would I do this for?" They said 3 years. And I said, "Would I get paid while I'm doing it?" They said, "No." I said, "Okay. Will I be able to invest in some of the businesses that I'm backing?" They said, "No." I said, "Why is that?" They said, "Because you can't cherry pick. You either back them all or none. You can't pick." I said, "I understand." And I said, "So if I'm doing this for 3 years, if I'm not earning any money, can I at least claim some expenses?" They said, "Not really." I said, "Out of curiosity, why would I do this?" They said, "You would do it for your country." I said,
Patriotism.
I said, "Can I think about it?"
Yeah.
So I went home and I remember talking to my daughter and saying, "You never guess what happened today." I said, "I had this incredible meeting with the Prime Minister in Downing Street. They want me to launch this company called Startup Loans and they want to put £1 billion in." And she said, "You're going to do it?" I said, "Of course not. I have a day job. I run my own private equity. I can't just leave for 3 years."
Yeah.
And she said, "But Dad, imagine if you could help thousands of people in the UK start their own business. What a legacy to leave behind." And life is not just about making money. Sometimes life is about, doing other things that make a difference. So I went to bed that night and I thought, maybe she's got a point. This could be an amazing experience for me. So I went back and said, "Okay, I'll do it." So I stepped down as chief executive of my private equity firm and joined the government and launched Startup Loans. And for that 3-year period, I started 28,000 businesses,
Wow.
creating 165,000 jobs in the UK.
Wow, phenomenal. That's maybe why God's blessed you. Paying it forward, if you help someone, the universe helps you. Now, out of those businesses that you helped in the startup loans businesses, which is the most successful one to date?
I mean, because there are so many businesses, they've had some incredible success stories, some in fashion, some in retail, some in e-commerce. I don't know how many there are today because I stepped down as chairman about 7 years ago. But it's an incredible success story, what we created and the organization we built and the amount of founders we backed. If I look back on my career and you said to me, what is the highlight? I think the highlight would be my time at Startup Loans, because for any one individual to start 28,000 businesses
Phenomenal.
is unbelievable.
Look at all the people you employed. That's phenomenal. Good blessings.
Mm-hmm.
Out of those 28,000 businesses, how many of those failed? Because not every business has success.
I would say probably 1 in 3 would not make it.
Right.
I think if you look at the startup world, for every 10 businesses that are launched, 3 probably don't make it. And I would imagine the same statistics would apply there.
Okay, and when you give a business capital to start their business, what's the minimum amount you give? What's the maximum? Or does that differentiate per business? Like I'm in the property business, that's highly capital intensive. So if I came to you, James, I need money for property, you need to give me a lot. Whereas if it's a smaller business, they might...
I mean, the smallest loan could have been 10,000.
Yes.
The biggest loan might be 50,000. It depends on the business plan, the business, what they're doing, the market they're in, what their commitment is. Yeah. Every business we analyse and evaluated on the merits of that business plan.
Right, okay. Interesting. And your title, Commander of the British Empire, James Caan CBE, which is a huge achievement. Can you tell the audience how did that come about? Why were you awarded such an honourable award?
When I stepped down from Startup Loans, because it had done so well, because we'd started so many businesses, to my surprise, at the end of the year, I think it was the Christmas honours list the following year, I saw that I'd been nominated for a CBE, and it was nominated for my contribution to the UK economy, to entrepreneurship in this country, for effectively starting those 28,000 businesses. And of course, because I never got paid, it was my contribution to entrepreneurship in the UK.
Phenomenal. A wonderful award to get from the King of England. And out of the entrepreneurs that you help start up their own business, are you in contact with any of them or no contact at all? Because it's nice to see them grow. Like a school teacher, when he sees one of his students do really well, it's good feeling for the teacher.
I think when I ran the business, I had a lot of interaction. Obviously, because I don't live in the UK anymore, I don't have as much access, to day, because I'm just not here as often as I used to be.
Okay. And also, James, one other question the viewers want to know. You were obviously known from Dragon's Den, CNBC, your Sky News channel. What would you like to share about your experiences on TV? Like on Dragon's Den, you're very popular. In my personal opinion, I think you were the best dragon. Was there any battle of egos between you and Peter Jones?
I think...
Because competition always leads to efficiency. And any of the businesses you invested in Dragons, was they fruitful for you?
Yeah, I think, Dragons is an incredibly competitive environment. You've got four big personalities, four big egos, and the minute an entrepreneur walks in, we all want to do that deal. Of course, there's high competition because you don't want to overpay for the business, but you want to demonstrate to the entrepreneur why he should go with you. Yeah. So there was always a little bit of competition, but for my time, I did 5 years at Dragon's Den. It was an incredible experience. I really enjoyed it. I remember when I first went in the den, I, for some reason, thought that when you go in and you get an entrepreneur, you get like a pack, with his business plan, his CV, what he wants, etc. And when I arrived, you kind of get in there at 9 o'clock, you do makeup, you get dressed, you go into the den, and the guy walks up the stairs. You get nothing. So all of a sudden, I'm sitting there thinking, how can you decide in 20 minutes to write somebody a check for £150,000 that you've never met on a business you know nothing about? So 2 weeks went by, and I hadn't done a deal because I couldn't get my head around that quickly. And I was getting dressed one Friday morning, and my daughter said to me, how's it going? I said, actually, not really well. Yeah. She said, don't tell me you haven't done a deal. I said, I haven't done a deal yet. She said, oh my God, Dad, I've told all my friends you're going to be doing this show, and you're going to be the Muppet on the show that doesn't actually put his hand in his pocket. You can't be there and not do a deal. So as the taxi picks me up, I'm driving to Pinewood Studios, and I think, she's right, I have to do a deal, even though I can't in 20 minutes work it out. So my plan was that day, the first person who walked through the door, I'm just going to put my hand up and say, I'm in. Yeah. And my first investment was, I still remember it to this day, a lady called Sammy French. And she came in and said, Dragons, I've got a great idea for you. I've done a lot of research in the UK, and I've concluded one of the biggest challenges in England today is our dogs are too fat. We are not exercising our dogs, and they're putting on too much weight. And I've invented a treadmill for a dog. And I said, I'm in. I invested £100,000. And if you look today, Nabil, in my garage, you'll see 253 dog treadmills in my garage.
Why didn't you sell them on eBay?
Because dogs aren't fat.
So that business didn't go well, didn't it? Okay, and also, James, you had CNBC, you had Sky News and Dragon's Den. Which channel gave you the most exposure? Because in the business fraternity, you're a well-known personality. Which one do you think gave you more exposure?
I think the BBC, clearly, because it has a much wider reach, and also Dragon's Den is syndicated to 20 other countries around the world. So what I was really shocked about is I remember going to Cape Town, and in South Africa, the British version of Dragon's Den is massively popular. And I couldn't believe wherever I went in Cape Town, people were taking a picture. And I'm like, but I've never been here. I don't know anybody.
Yeah.
And yet I spoke to somebody and they said to me, oh my God, everybody loves Dragon's Den in South Africa. So BBC by far is the biggest reach. But I think CNBC for me was a business channel. I had a program on there for 2 years.
Yeah.
I used to have a weekly show called A Business Class with James Caan. And I really enjoyed that because that was a really serious show. It was business. An entrepreneur would come in and we would effectively dissect his business, put it all into pieces, rebuild the business, and show him where he can leverage growth, where he can develop efficiencies, how he can scale the business. And intellectually, I really enjoyed that a lot.
The other question I want to ask you, James, is you've created your own channel, ChatGPT, Ask James a Question. So you're well into AI and digital marketing. What's your take on that on today's modern business? Because back in the day when you started your business, you had the yellow pages, didn't you? So there's been a drastic change in the business world in every sector. So AI is now changing the future. Like AI has existed for a long time. When people use computers, spell check, that's a form of AI. So how's that changing the modern world of business today?
I think in the next 3 to 5 years, I truly believe you will not recognize the business world in literally the next 3 to 5 years. I think AI will transform the way we do business. I just came back from Oxfordshire, where there's a global summit of the world's most successful tech entrepreneurs are in the UK this week. And I spoke at the conference yesterday, and there were 80 billionaires in the room. This is the guy who set up Twitter, the guy who set up Skype, the guy who set up Instagram, the guy who set up Spotify. I mean, every big tech company, the CEO and founders were at this conference. And I was listening to their take on AI. And I promise you, I walked out of that room, my head was spinning. I thought, if only half of what they're predicting happens, we are going to change the landscape. How I've embraced AI, because I have such a big social media reach, just on LinkedIn alone, I think I have 3.5 million followers
phenomenal.
on that.
That's phenomenal.
And
that's like Ronaldo on Instagram.
So, and you can imagine, I get constantly thousands of people every day writing to me, asking me questions. The problem is I physically cannot get to every one of those people. Yeah. So I've recently launched a channel on ChatGPT, and I have my own private dedicated channel called Ask James on GPT. And I've had a team of people working for the last 4 months, collating every piece of data that I've produced over 30 years. So every interview, every news show I've done, all my programs on Dragon's Den, from CNBC, my book, the autobiography, the business books. I've got 2,500 posts on LinkedIn. So all of the data that I've generated, that I've created, we have uploaded onto my channel. So today you can simply go onto ChatGPT, type in Ask James.
Yes.
You can ask me a question and the answer comes directly from me, not the World Wide Web. So it's like having James Caan as a mentor.
Yes.
Because you can literally, I mean, I go onto my channel every single day and I ask a question just to see whether it is me or the web. And even I'm shocked. The answers literally come out of my mouth. It's unbelievable. It is the most incredible thing I've ever seen, that you can literally tap into somebody's brain and ask that specific question. So, you know, literally, I can imagine in the next 12 months, I'll be mentoring 3.5 million people.
But going back to the point you said AI will change the landscape of business, that means earlier when you spoke about starting up businesses and employment, that means lots of people lose their jobs. Like I deal with a lot of lawyers. So when you want a contract, you get a lawyer to type a contract, he checks it. I was talking to a top lawyer in a top legal firm. He said all the lawyers will be out of jobs. There'll just be one lawyer who'll check all the contracts that ChatGPT turns out. So what about employment?
I think
Employment will get raised.
I think this is the biggest elephant in the room. The consequences of AI is you will see a number of jobs will not exist.
Yes.
And I think for people who are listening to the podcast today, one thing you have to be, if it was me today, you need to look at the job that you are doing today and you need to say, how can I use AI to enhance the way I do my job? So rather than being afraid of it, I think you need to embrace it and say, how does this make me better? Because if I can't develop my skills to do it better, there will be no job. So I think you want to be the guy who's checking the contracts, not the guy producing them. And therefore...
like an auditor in effect.
Yeah. So you've got to recognize it will affect your industry. There are... unless you're a carpenter, or a plumber...
The tools person on the hands-on job.
But if you are using a computer in your job today... your job will change. I'm absolutely convinced of that.
So young entrepreneurs going into business or any sector, they should always think how AI will change the landscape and then move with the times.
And if you don't know the answer, just ask ChatGPT. It will tell you.
Or ask James.
That's right.
So you've got 3.5 million followers on LinkedIn, which is phenomenal. I hope you share this podcast on there, by the way, because I want to inspire all your followers. But was that due to the fact that you were on television, or was that due to the fact your success in business?
I'd love to say it was because I was on TV. Unfortunately, that's not true, because when you generate content on social media, if the content is of no interest, nobody follows you.
Yes.
So you can be the most famous person in the world, but I can write a post tomorrow, it will bomb. Just because I'm James Caan doesn't mean
if you're good looking and handsome like you, people might follow you, James. They're good looking, man.
I'll take your word for that. No, so one piece of advice I would give is to drive traffic on social media, you need good content, you need engaging content.
Yes.
You can't just attract people because you're good looking, and you would obviously know that.
Yes, that's what my digital team tell me all the time. So also, James, you are an author of a number of books. You had your autobiography. You start your own business, 7 Days. What inspired you to write these books?
I think when I did Dragon's Den, I realised there's such a thirst in this country of young people who want to start their own business, and they need access to content. They need somebody to kind of share their experience, their knowledge, etc. And I was approached by Random House, which is one of the largest publishers in this country, to say, would you share your life story, with people so they can learn from you? And for me, it was a way of sharing my journey, sharing my knowledge. To my surprise, my autobiography made the Sunday Times bestseller list. It did better than anybody thought. On the back of that.
Are these e-books or audiobooks or physical books?
No, so I originally did the physical book.
Yes.
Then I did the audio book.
Yes.
Then I did the e-book.
Right.
I then wrote Start Your Own Business in 7 Days. That was really a combination of the 1,000 entrepreneurs I met on Dragon's Den. Everything I learned about the mistakes that they had made, I put into that book. And then because my background's in recruitment, I was then encouraged to write a book for the recruitment industry. And then I wrote the book, Get the Job You Really Want.
Is that the bestseller?
My autobiography's done better than the other two.
Can you give me a gift of that? I want to read it.
Of course, absolutely.
When I travel up and down the train from London to Manchester, I'll read it. Okay, and also, this is a property podcast, James. I'm a property entrepreneur. When I was at university, I bought my first house. I've been in the property industry for 30 years. I've transacted over 5,000 transactions, over £5 billion. I also see that you're very active in this space. Can you share your experience about property? And also, why do I know lots of wealthy people just like you in different sectors, in clothing, in the food industry, in recruitment, And everybody I speak to, they love to have a property portfolio. Why do you think that is? Is that to say they've got something tangible? Is that for their pension fund when they retire, they've got rental income coming in? Why do you think everybody loves to be in the property industry? Why do people love to have investment properties?
I mean, like you, Nabil, I've been investing in real estate for 30 years. So it's something I'm very familiar with. So I think the first answer is, why do people do it? I think it's because it's tangible and it's real and it's bricks and mortar. And I think as any entrepreneur, we want to feel like we own something that's real. But I think, and I've learned some incredible lessons in real estate. So the first thing I would say is, please do not think that real estate is a safe industry to invest in, because it's not. There are as many risks, and I've lost as much money in real estate as I've lost in any other investment.
But it depends when you exit, James. If you hold property, generally the property cycle's like this, goes down and this. So if you hold the property long enough, you won't lose.
Correct.
And
but
if it's debt driven, if you bought it with your own money.
My point is, there are too many variables, but the first thing I've learned, which I passionately believe in, I think there is a myth that real estate is safe. I think that myth is wrong. Real estate has as many risks as any other business, is my first lesson. Secondly, people say in real estate, there are 3 golden rules of real estate: location, location, location. I don't believe that. I think that myth is wrong. I think location is very important, but I think debt is as important as an ingredient. The debt market fuels real estate.
Yes.
If debt is not available, real estate doesn't happen.
A prime example of that is right now.
Correct.
Interest rates are high,
Yeah.
and the real estate market is not as active as it was.
Correct.
When the interest rates drop, the market will be
100%.
a lot more active, it'll be hotter.
So if you don't understand debt,
Yes.
don't go into real estate, because debt is a fundamental principle of real estate.
Yes.
So when I've made money, it's because I've bought well and I financed well.
But we're talking about UK, James. If you go to, let's say, Dubai, lots of assets there, people don't get debt as much as like UK or the West. People get mortgages and everything they buy predominantly.
But I think if you're buying on a commercial level, it's different.
Yes.
If you're buying residential, you're right.
Yeah.
It's a different situation. So my 3 principles of real estate: yes, location, debt, and finally timing. You know, timing in real estate is everything. You get the timing wrong, you can lose money. So if I enter a development today and the forecast is that they're going to complete the development in 3 years' time, and at that time the market's tanked, I've got it wrong.
Then you're snookered.
Then you're snookered. So timing, I think when you enter the world of real estate, to me, they are the fundamental principles. Today, one of the things that I've learned is, despite the fact that I have 30 years experience in real estate, I still don't know enough. I think you have to know so much. And every real estate entrepreneur I meet, his biggest downfall is he doesn't know enough. And
We're always learning, James.
And the problem is, but if you're not learning enough, if you're not spending enough time, you don't have enough knowledge. I met an entrepreneur recently, very successful entrepreneur in real estate. He's been in it for 26 years. And I said, which market do you cover? He said, Oxford Street. I said, what do you mean? He said, for 26 years, I only trade in Oxford Street. Retail.
That's a
And I
dark
said-
market anyway, for a start.
So I said to him, so you telling me that you don't do central London? He said, I don't know the market. He said, I only know one market and I know one street.
That is central London.
But my point is, there's more than one street in central London.
Yeah.
The moral of the story is, what that taught me is, to be successful, he studied that street for 26 years in one street. He knew every number, every landlord, every tenant. He knew when the rent review was. He knew exactly what the size, the square
You
footage.
knew the subject very well.
He knew it backwards. That, for me, just reminded me of how important it is that just because you bought 2 houses does not make you an expert in real estate. So today, when I invest in real estate, I try and find people who know more than I do in real estate. So up until about 5 years ago, I used to do it direct. So I'd go and buy a building, block of flats, individual units. I realized that even after 25 years, I don't know enough. What I do today is my job is to find people who know more than I do, and I invest with them. So,
JV partner.
or as an investor. So I've met somebody recently who does industrial real estate.
Good sector to be in, because after COVID, what happens, James, there's a lot of people, the retail market's dying, people hire industrial units and put their offices above, and they order something online. Next day it comes to you. Saves the customer time going to the shop, and saves them petrol, parking, transport, etc. It's a lot more efficient.
So this guy I met, he's been doing it for 20 years, and he's bought £4.2 billion worth of industrial real estate. So he has
Across the country, I presume.
Across Europe.
Yeah.
And I thought, what he knows, I will never understand. So I would rather invest with him. So when he has a deal, let me put my investment in,
Yeah.
and he takes 20% of the profits. And so I'm happy to share 20% of the profits with him, because I think that is worth it for the knowledge that he brings. So today I have quite a large portfolio in real estate, but all of the real estate I hold today is I hold through somebody else leading it who knows more than I do.
But you're the beneficial owner. You're the owner of the real
I'm an investor, so I own a share of it.
Yeah. Right, I'm with you. See, my business model, James, in the beginning, in my early part of the career, I used to buy properties for kudos, like Eaton Place, Belgravia, lots of apartments around Mayfair. But my business model has changed now. I only buy distressed assets.
There's a lot of that around right now.
Where the property I can add value across the country, I'll buy it. So it's like me buying a property in a coma, adding value. Then after 2-3 years, when I've added value and maximise the value, I'll sell it. Previously, I just wanted to have a huge portfolio, but now, as soon as I see a profit, I cash in, take the chips off the table.
Is it residential or commercial?
Predominantly residential, or underpinned by residential, because one thing, again, I learned from COVID, James, is that residential is recession-proof. Everybody needs a roof over their head.
Yeah.
Like people need food to live, you need a roof over your head. So it's a good sector to be in. Same with industrial. Industrial's a good sector as well.
But offices are really dying.
Offices are dying. That's why the government's offered PDR schemes. Another good sector, I'm buying a lot of probate property. So whenever you buy probate property, before first, let's say paying £5 million a year in stamp duty to the government, it's probate, if you buy a property, there's no stamp duty if you buy it through a limited company. That's an automatic saving and more profit up on day one.
Amazing. Okay.
That's so. Now, also, James, you don't, obviously God's blessed you with a lot of wealth, success, recognition. You don't need to work anymore. You could have a nice luxury life in the south of France, go to Saint-Tropez one time, go to Mykonos the other time, just travel the world, but you're still always on the job. You've got your finger on the pulse. Is that your passion? Is it a hobby? Or is that just to keep yourself busy?
So I have fortunately had that experience where I gave up work and I spent 2 years living on the beach in Phuket, because I thought, I don't need to do this anymore. Why don't I just do exactly what you said? I have a beautiful boat. I'll just sail my boat. I'll go to beaches and restaurants. The problem is, Nabil, if you're a successful entrepreneur, you are wired a particular way.
Yeah.
You have a certain DNA.
Yes.
You can't change it. You can't change who you are. And after 2 years of literally, living on a beach, I woke up one day and thought, what am I doing? This is not who I am. And I came back to Monaco and I did what I really enjoy doing. And I think business is my love. It's my passion. It drives me. It motivates me, intellectually stimulates me. The only thing I think you have to do is find the balance. Because the problem with entrepreneurs is we don't know when to switch off. We work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Call, yeah.
We're always on call.
Yes.
So I've been striving, and I mean striving to find a balance to say, I love what I do, but it can't be the only thing I do. I want to enjoy what I've created. So fortunately for me today, I work from 10 till 12, and then I take a 3-hour break, and then I work from 3 to 5. So I'm 63 now. It's taken me 43 years to work out how to find the balance.
Good. I hope I can find it too. And also, James, I met you many times before. I met you in Richmond at Lady Annabelle's house. I met you in Manchester. And one thing I learned about you, James, you're always calm, polite, respectful to everybody, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whether you're any level of person. You always give the person a lot of love, respect and kindness. And also, you're always focused on the job. How do you differentiate, like everybody has personal setbacks or professional setbacks? How do you stay focused on the job? Let's say if you've got any issues going on in life, how do you stay professional at your work?
I think I believe it or not, I went to a seminar of Deepak Chopra's, and I sat and listened to him. And one of the things that he said is we take everything too seriously. And when we take things too seriously, it makes us feel too much self-importance. The truth of the matter is, any one activity that happens in our life doesn't change our life. You know, it's a setback, but it doesn't change your life. So why do we take it so seriously? Why do we get so stressful on something that isn't going to change our life? So I convinced myself 35 years ago that unless it changes my life, it shouldn't stress me. And the reality is nothing changes my life. It's a setback. And setbacks actually make you better. They make you stronger. They make you more focused. And I think the reason I'm calm is because I don't think it matters. And do I make mistakes? Every single week. Do I make investments that lose money? Always.
Do not kick yourself, oh, why did I invest in that treadmill for dogs, for example?
No.
I lost 100K.
No. Because without being arrogant, didn't change my life. Just a bad deal.
Yeah. As long as you do more good than bad.
Of course.
Okay.
So I think to answer you, which I think is a really important question, all I would say is just don't take it too seriously. Take it in your stride and fight for another day. No one transaction, is going to, unless it's you bet the farm on it. But in day-to-day life, things go wrong. They're just setbacks. Take them on the chin, learn from them, and become a better person because of it, rather than letting it stress you and wind you up. The other thing I feel, everybody thinks to be in business, you have to be ruthless and aggressive. And the truth is, I don't believe that either. I think you can be calm. I think you could be fair. In my book, I remember in my first chapter, I gave an example of some advice that my father gave. And when I was running my business, I asked him for some advice. And he said to me, the way entrepreneurs run businesses is on transactions. They fight for every deal. They squeeze the last drop of a deal. The problem is when you do that, you don't build a relationship. The chances are you can't go back. Yeah. And my father's belief was you should run business based on relationships, not transactions. And therefore, if it's a relationship, the transaction is what I call win-win. You want the person you're buying from to win, and you want to win.
So it can reciprocate and happen again.
Because, surprise, surprise, he will come back to you. So, I sold a recruitment business a few years ago. It did amazingly well. And we were negotiating together to try and sell this business. And we did a very fair deal. It was a great deal for me. It was a great deal for him. We shook hands and we both walked away feeling like we'd won. 3 years later, he came back to me and said, the company's doing really well. Do you have another one I can buy? And we've now sold him 3 different businesses. Now, I could have squeezed him on the first one. I know I could have done. I could have taken a bit more off the table. But I thought, you know what? I want to do it right. That's fair for him because I want him to make money too. Because I did the right thing, he then came back and I've subsequently sold 2 other businesses. So I've never forgotten that principle of business. I think there has to be a degree of fairness. But the most important thing, when I walk away from a transaction, I always ask myself that question, was it fair and did he win as well as me?
If you're fair to people, the universe is fair to you. I can remember in your speech in Manchester, when you came a few years ago, I listened to what you said. You said a lot of business is done on relationships. You said that point then to 500 people. Also, you said you can't control how much wealth you'll make. Like you could work 100 hours a week and I could work 80. I might make more money than you in 1 week. And also you said...
But we think it's us. Yeah, it's not. No, we don't control it.
Exactly.
It's in our destiny.
Exactly. And same with death. We all want to live long and healthy, but that's up to God, the Almighty.
And I think your wealth is up to God too. Yeah. But I think we as human beings, we think we're wealthy because we're smart or we work hard. But actually, I think it's in your destiny because I come from a family, there's 7 of us, 3 brothers, 3 sisters. We're all completely different, but we came from the same father, the same mother, the same education, the same upbringing. So how come we all ended up completely differently? Because it was our destiny.
But one thing you brought to the table with your family, James, is you learned how to work smart rather than hard. Your father was a factory worker. You changed the whole dynamic. So that's an inspiration to us all. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I want to ask you, James, is I started e-learning modules, 7 modules, because I'm a property expert, been doing it for 30 years. I had loads of people messaging me like, I want to buy this property, I want to do that. And I created 7 modules and I give it to everybody. And what to buy, what to look for, like say location, finance, etc. What do you think of e-learning? Because you're a business expert. What do you think of teaching people property, real estate?
I think now with AI, I think e-learning is going to explode. I think you will see learning completely being transformed. When you go into a class today, you have 20 kids in a class and they get 1 lesson. The problem is they're 20 different kids with 20 different skill levels. Yes. I think AI will create content for schools today which will be personalized. I think the access of information and knowledge with artificial intelligence will transform the way we learn. And I think the advantage you have is because you have a name and a brand. So when you've got content, that content has to have an identity. Content without an identity is difficult.
So I've got the CV. I've transacted on so many transactions. That's why doctors, lawyers, friends, colleagues, all my followers on Instagram keep on asking me questions. And that's why I created this module, these modules to direct them there. Because otherwise I wouldn't have any time to transact. Sure. Mm-hmm. Do you think it's a good sector?
Without a doubt. I'm not sure you'll make a lot of money. I don't think it's a money-making activity. But do I think there's a need out there? Absolutely.
Like this podcast, I don't make money. It costs me. It's a passion.
Yeah.
Because I learn from people. I'm learning from you, James. Mm. You learn all the time. And the final question, James, I can see that you're a great philanthropist. You set up James Caan Foundation. Can you tell the audience what James Caan Foundation does and what made you set this up?
I think when I sold my first business, I realized that as an entrepreneur, we're quite gifted. We're privileged to be in the position that we're in, and God's been very great to us. And if we have the ability to give back, I think it's a very honorable thing to do. But what I found really interesting is giving money away is not as easy as it sounds. It actually sounds really easy, just give money away to the poor. But where do you do it? How do you do it? What channel do you do it? How do you track it? And I was very fortunate to be invited to Davos one year. And I went to Davos, and you get a website and it shows you all the people that are there. And I'm going through the list and I noticed that Bill Gates was going to be there. And Bill Gates is the one person I admire the most in business, not because of Microsoft, but I think from a giving point of view.
Yeah, he loves to give.
To give away 90% of your wealth, I think, is the most honourable thing any human being can do. And he's going to give away £40 billion.
Wow.
And I thought, I'd love to understand, how does he do that? Not that I thought for 1 second he would respond, but I saw his name on the list, and there's a contact, and you can message on that website. So I sent him a message and said, hi, I'm James Caan. I'm going to be at Davos. I noticed you're going to be there. I would love to have 20 minutes of your time to get some advice on how do you give. And to my shock and horror, the next morning, I remember in those days I had a BlackBerry, and I saw the email from Bill Gates saying, hi, James, I'm going to be in Davos. I can do Friday, 9 o'clock, 20 minutes. I remember going to bed that evening in Davos on Thursday. I couldn't sleep all night. because I thought, I'm going to see my hero. Anyway, so I saw him in the morning and I asked him for some advice. I said, look, I want to set up this foundation. How do you give?
Yeah.
And the advice that he gave me is what my foundation has been built on for 20 years now. So he said, the art of giving is called bang for buck. You want to make the biggest difference with the money that you deploy. So as an example, he said, we've just done a deal in Africa where something like 15 million children will die because of malaria. The cause of malaria is mosquitoes. The cure for mosquitoes for children is to have a net. Too many kids go to bed every night in Africa without a net, and as a consequence, get bitten and they die because of it. So Bill Gates is providing 1 million nets a year for free to families, but the net cost him $1. So for $1, he can save the life of a child. That's called bang for buck. The other project he did was in India. There was something like 2.5 million people who are blind because of a cataract in their eye.
Yes.
There is a charity that has a mobile van that drives around in villages that delivers that operation, and for $16 you can give a man sight. So the James Caan Foundation really focuses on changing the lives of people, but as a businessman, I want to invest to get to as many people as I can for as little money as it requires. So, you know, we do work in Africa, we do work in India, we do work in Pakistan, and we don't have barriers of race, religion, color, creed. It's about a human being.
So that's the way it should be. Also, I believe the hands that help, this is my personal belief, are holier than the lips that pray. You're actually physically doing something, James, and helping people. That's phenomenal.
Thank you.
Well done. And James, it's a pleasure having you on the Bricks to Riches podcast.
It was a delight being here.
I know you're
I'm just worried I might miss my flight.
Don't worry, we'll take you in a private jet. But thank you so much, James, for your time. Really
Pleasure.
appreciate it. Thank you.